Welcome! Today we're going to talk about how glaciers change in our changing climate. To start, the cool Arctic regions are beginning to warm at almost double the rate of the rest of the Earth. Glaciers are extremely climate dependent. A slight rise or drop in temperature is the difference between glacial growth or melt. Because glaciers are so climate sensitive, glaciers are showing some of the first negative impacts of our rapidly changing climate. You might be wondering, if warming temperatures are the main threat to glaciers, why don't glaciers completely melt during summertime? Well, snowpack and glaciers rely on something called albedo to prevent melt. Albedo is the amount of solar radiation that is reflected from a surface. To better understand albedo, think of the clothing you might wear on a hot summer day. If you wear a black shirt, you will feel much hotter than if you wore a white shirt. This is because the shirt will absorb a higher amount of solar radiation than the white shirt. The same can be said of glaciers and snowpack. Albedo is a spectrum, not just black or white, and snow has a higher albedo than sea or glacial ice. So we know that glaciers rely on snowfall for growth, but we can also think of the snowpack as a protective layer for a glacier in the summer. If the winter provides heavy snowfall, come summertime, more solar rays will be reflected. If you look at snow or glacial ice up closely, you may notice that it's not perfectly white. Often you will see black particulate that covers the snow. Some of this particulate is known as black carbon. Black carbon comes from the burning of fossil fuels and/or forest fires. When black carbon or black particulate covers the snowfield, it will reduce the albedo of that surface, increasing the rate of melt. Scientists will categorize black carbon and black particulate together, calling it effective black carbon. The Greenland Ice Sheet is experiencing rapid melt from these key climate-changing factors. Covering close to 3/4 of Greenland and containing roughly 8% of the world's freshwater, the Greenland Ice Sheet impacts more than just the land it exists on. An ice sheet of such massive size has an enormous influence on natural processes. For example, if the entire ice sheet melted, there would be a global sea level rise of approximately 7 meters. While this may not seem like a lot in comparison to the entire ocean, a sea level rise of 1 meter can erode coastlines and displace many coastal populations. Freshwater flows from glaciers to streams and into our oceans. The inputs of freshwater to the ocean is a naturally occurring process. However, increased freshwater inputs can drastically change the chemistry of ocean waters. This can be extremely harmful to marine animals. It would be like if the chemistry of the air we breathe changed. If we had less oxygen, it would be a lot harder to breathe. The extreme cold temperatures from the massive ice sheet drives atmospheric circulation. This is important for the movement of cloud formations, surface temperatures, and wind patterns. With warmer temperatures, global rain patterns will begin to shift. Studies from 2019 conducted by NOAA show that approximately 95% of the Greenland ice sheet experienced melting events in the summer. Summer melt used to be averaged at approximately 64% of the ice sheet. Scientists use satellite imagery and collect weather data to see glacial changes. This data is collected monthly to create a complete data set. This dataset has shown earlier melt seasons and regions of thinning ice, which is crucial to better understanding our changing climate. When discussing the impacts of climate change, it is important to reconnect with wild places. How do we, as humans, interact with glaciers? From providing fresh water to driving atmospheric circulation, glaciers are part of daily human life. These areas provide homes, food, and jobs. Tourism and fishing are major industries that fuel communities. What other animals rely on glacial ice? Many animals like polar bears, seals, and walruses rely on glacial ice sheet for habitat and hunting grounds. Melting ice sheets result in smaller livable areas for these animals. To adapt, these animals are being forced to change eating habits and seek refuge in other regions. This means a loss of habitat, less food, and increased human interactions. These changes can seem fast and extremely intense, but every day scientists are working to better understand and educate people all over the world about the importance of our changing glaciers. Policymakers work with corporations to encourage clean energy and reduce carbon dioxide emissions. People at home may change their diets to eat more sustainable foods or use public transportation. As you can see, there are many ways to care for the environment. Sharing what you know with others and investigating the natural environments you live in are major ways to be an ally. How do you want to help protect the environment?